Hello there, Senators, and welcome to Star Wars Democracy. We're going to be talking about the Acolyte Episode 4. What's going on in the Star Wars community right now? We're going to touch on some polls that we've taken in the community tab to kind of get a gauge on where our community and the Star Wars fandom is at as a whole. And then we'll get into some other Star Wars news. I have Journeyman here with me tonight. Journeyman, how are you doing tonight?
Good, doing great.
Great. Have any new thoughts on Acolyte episode 4 since we've talked last, or are you still sitting at a 7.5?
I'm still sitting at a 7.5. It's still a really fun show. I'm enjoying it, but
Yeah,
still kind of just iffy a little bit. Not too terrible, but still just kind of a few little things.
not terrible, not great. It's somewhere in the middle, I suppose. Well, I wanted to start our discussion off about what is happening to the Star Wars community right now. Journeyman and I were just talking a little bit briefly before we got started, and I was asking him if he had any idea what was going on in the fandom and the community, Star Wars community as a whole right now. And for those of you who don't know, he's kind of taken a step back from all Star Wars media and is just trying to enjoy Star Wars content for what it is and not get any outside opinions. And so I'm partially going to be filling you in on this, but I don't know if you saw the thumbnail to this video, but Kiandi Mundi, who we know was in the episode, we talked about it on Tuesday. He
Hmm.
has ruffled a lot of feathers, is one way to put it, in the Star Wars community. Him being in the episode for two reasons.
Interesting.
Um,
Why?
the first reason being that he's just in it to begin with, right? He's the person who, like we talked about on Tuesday, is said that's in the Phantom Menace. That's impossible. The Sith have been extinct for millennia. So a lot of people are having issues that he is, out of all the Jedi they could have chosen, they chose him to put in the episode. They think it's breaking the continuity of Star Wars. And then in addition to that, uh, apparently, and this is kind of, I want to go here before we kind of circle back to this specific conversation. But
Sure.
apparently, Wikipedia, which I don't know if you have used before, Wikipedia is like the equivalent to
I
Wikipedia.
A little bit. Yeah, I've looked
Yeah.
up some certain things. Yeah.
Yeah. It's kind of like the go to on the internet. Anytime you have a question about something, uh, Star Wars
For Star
related,
Wars. Yeah.
generally, if you Google something, it's going to be the first website that pops up.
Hmm.
Well, according to legends, Kiani Mundi was born in 93 BBY, 93 years before the Battle of Yavin.
Hmm.
Born that year, 93 BBY. He was born that year. Did
Hmm.
not come into existence before that year, according to legends and what it said on Wikipedia. Well, since we know that this show takes a place about 100 years, we don't know for sure when the show takes place, but we think it's about 100 years prior to the Phantom Menace. Since it takes place before then, he's obviously not a baby. And according to what legend said, he shouldn't have even been born yet. Um,
Mm.
and so what had happened was, I didn't see this for sure, but the story goes that as soon as the episode dropped, people were obviously flocking to the website to see, get information on when was he supposed to be born, because this seems to be breaking the continuity of what we know. And the people at Wikipedia changed the information as soon as the episode dropped, and that has
Mm.
people up in arms. I'm not going to go into too much detail about who is kind of causing a lot of drama right now, or because it's a lot of people. It's not just one person, but it has ruffled people's feathers to the point where Wikipedia was getting death threats, which of course it's social media, it happens, but of course it doesn't mean it's right, but it happens, saying that, whoever made the change, like, all these nasty things. This is a fictional universe about a fictional character. And honestly, in my opinion, and I'd like to get your opinion on it, that's kind of what I want to talk about first. Who cares? That's kind of like, I mean, it's,
as we've kind of talked, not just on this topic, but just overall general stuff about Star Wars. It is Disney's property now. It's not George's. If George was here and he wanted to add Kiadi Mundi in there, it's the same type of thing. Like, it is Disney's property now. They get to play with the toys however they want to.
mm-hmm,
We as fans are beholden to them to a point. Like, we do have a right and a say in their things. It's called their wallets. So like, if you feel that mad about it or whatever, like, yes, write your reviews in a polite, nice manner and actually critique it, or hit them where it hurts and go for their wallet of like not watching the show or not doing any Disney stuff. But
mm-hmm,
we are kind of beholden to them at some point of just like, here's the Star Wars content we do get. And if you play devil's advocate and say, if this was George Lucas running it, maybe would he have not made those mistakes? Sure. But it was his property at the time as well. And so he could have made whatever he did, make whatever changes he wanted to the story. He added whatever he needed to, ever he wanted to. Heck, that's why there is legends. Like, he let people have their creative freedom in what he was doing. So
mm-hmm,
at some point, it's I think how they did it, like, yes, it's probably not the correct information what they did of like rewriting the history or whatever, right? Like you said,
mm-hmm,
it's a fictional
mm-hmm,
thing. But I think the connection that you can make from it still holds true of like, something was going on, the political corruption was still there. Like, it's a pretty solid connection to make. Whether we like it or not, I feel like it still flows along with the story of making it a great story
mm-hmm,
into the prequels.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
And
yeah.
so,
Yeah, and I think the biggest thing is if you have a problem with this, don't flock to I mean, share your opinion. Everybody's entitled to their opinion, 100%. Um, but don't flock to social media and start making death threats or start telling
no,
people that they're not real Star Wars fans because they we're arguing over the age of a fictional character in a fictional universe, and it does mean something to people, but not at the expense of what's happening to the fandom right now. And I'm speaking pretty generally just because I don't want to spend too much time on the topic. I'd rather
sure.
get into the kind of the details of whether or not it's actually important to the canon or not. And I will say this. Well, before I get there, we got a few senators in the chat. We have Travis, good to see you, buddy. Thank you for being here. And we got Tony, as always, good to see you, my friend. We're talking about the Kiandi Mundi stuff, which, I mean, at this point, we're a little bit late to the game. The episode's been out since Tuesday. People have been talking about it for a couple of days now. And so I'm echoing a lot of thoughts that, everyone has probably heard, but it's just one of those things where it's just not that deep. And to me, I think what really is mattering at this point, and I will concede this ground, the the Phantom Menace, the line. I was watching a video by I believe it was Thor Skywalker today. And Thor Skywalker, to my understanding, what I gather from him, I've only seen a couple of his videos over the Acolyte, but he's not jiving with Acolyte very well. And again, that's totally fine. One of the things that he mentioned that it's very important to make sure that that line that Kiani Mundi uh, mentions in the Phantom Menace about the Sith being extinct for millennia. I thought this was important the way he said this. It sets up the whole context for really Star Wars, at least the prequel trilogy. That being that the Jedi had the Jedi were not expecting the Sith to return, and
Nope.
that's part of what, if not a lot of what, obviously contributed to their downfall. And so I think the point that he was making was is to the extent that what they're doing with the character in the Acolyte, if that carries over and changes things to a point where that no longer makes sense in the Phantom Menace, that is going to be a problem. And I will concede that ground because I agree with him. That line sets the whole context for what we see in the prequel trilogy movies of the Jedi had no idea. You had a Dark Lord of the Sith right underneath their nose. They were literally coming into contact with him on a constant basis since he was the Chancellor. I mean, Keanu Mundi himself was in the presence of the Chancellor in Attack of the Clones. We see him go to the office. Like, they got duped. And so, as much as I'm enjoying the Acolyte right now, and I love the entrance of that Sith when he just floats down like Mary Poppins, as everybody's saying, as much as I'm enjoying that stuff, I think that it's getting pretty close to stepping on the toes of that line and what that line means for Star Wars. I'm not
Sure.
saying that it's going to ruin it. I'm just saying they're coming pretty darn close to messing that up, and I think that they do have to be careful on that, and I will concede that much. But to the extent that we're complaining about his age and changing his age according to what it was in Legends, and saying that he shouldn't even be there. I mean, it was a pretty bold move to put him in there. I mean, they could have chose any Jedi, and they chose him, which probably means something. That probably means that he's a part of something, part of the cover up. Um, I'm rambling at this point. What are your thoughts on that? I mean, do you like the idea that he could be possibly part of some cover up, some massive um, scandal, I suppose?
I don't think he was the bad guy for it, but I think it just adds another layer of like intrigue to Star Wars, whether big or small. Like, I think it just adds another level of like conjecture, like theory of like, was it an actual cover up type thing of that leads into into not the sequels, into the prequels. Like, I think it just adds another level of thing. I will agree with you. Like, it is a slippery slope in terms of just like the overall story. Like, yes, you do have to be careful. And Lucasfilm, if you ever watch us, like, hear us. There is a slippery slope that you have to do. So, like,
Mhm.
still be aware of it. But like I said, at the end of the day, it really is their toy. Like, they can write it, rewrite it, double rewrite it, do whatever. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, it's their toy. They paid 4 billion or whatever it was for or for Star Wars. Like,
Mhm.
it is now their baby,
Yeah. Eh,
essentially. Like,
yeah.
they
Mhm.
they get to they get to play with it.
Sure. Yeah, and I'm kind of in agreement with the senator's comment here. Tony says there's a reason. Uh, I think he meant to say there's a reason why Leslie brought that character in. She didn't bring him in for the purpose of fan discourse. She must have a specific reason that hasn't been told yet. And that's my hope, Tony, is that there, and you gotta believe that that's the case, is there's a good, valid reason as to why this character brought in. Um, and as we talked about Tuesday, a lot of people, well, I don't know if we talked about this on Tuesday, but a lot of people are upset that this was the character they decided to bring in. They think it's risky, like we're talking about right now. It is a slippery slope. But what we did talk about Tuesday was how, in a lot of ways, in my opinion, this is a really fun way to include that character and potentially layer the Phantom Menace. And that's kind of my opinion on the matter. And my take is that I don't really care. I think if this is done correctly, and it could go very wrong very fast, but if
Yep.
this is done correctly, it makes the Phantom Menace that much more enjoyable, in my opinion. I don't think it takes anything away from the story if it's done correctly. If it's done
Yes,
correctly.
and we can eat our words here. If it done wrong horribly. Like we're willing to admit when we're wrong. But
Absolutely.
as of right now, I'm kind of liking the decision of it enhances the story for me. Like it
Yeah.
it enhances a little bit of the prequels. Like, still more questions that need to be answered for me.
Hmm. Yeah.
And so that's just my personal opinion. I'm not that upset about it. Sure, yes, it is a slippery slope, and they probably don't need to make that mistake again because of how bad it's gotten, I guess. But
Here we are. And speaking
like,
of
yeah,
eating my words, I think the whole stream on Tuesday was dedicated to or at least me. I'll let you speak for yourself. That Chimere is this Sith person that we see at the end of the episode. Now, people in my Discord, people in other Discords and chats that I'm in, have me wondering if I'm wrong, and then it's potentially somebody else, which we can get to that in a little bit. But we'll see. We'll see. Let's see. Travis says, as for Kiadi movie in Return of the Jedi, Anakin was played by a 78-year-old man, 10 years older than the guy playing Obi-Wan, meaning before the prequels, Anakin had kids when he was like 55. And then he says, once the prequels added context to the story and Hayden became the face of Anakin, that 78-year-old man is retconned into a 22-year-old, who is the eternal face of Anakin from that point on. That was a George Lucas Dave Filoni call, and one that people don't complain about anymore. People just like to find cracks in the armor to make themselves look like they're smarter. Yes. At this point, it's just become a big old look how smart I am. You're dumb. And it's Star Wars. It's supposed to be a place where you can escape and just do what we're doing right now, having a lot of fun and just talking about things, and speculating and talking about the news and talking about what the news could mean for the story moving forward. And yes, does Lucasfilm do some things that are like, every company does.
yes,
But at the end of the day, this is supposed to be a place where we can have fun. And that kind of leads me into my final point on this matter is, you and I, when we were first talking about, you and I were having conversations about Star Wars on a regular basis. And we're like, why don't we just put this on the internet for everybody to see? Because, I mean, we think we have good thoughts. We're having fun talking about it. We might as well share with more people. And look what we've done. We have Tony and Travis and several other people who will jump in time to time. And it's everything that we could have ever wanted, right? And
yeah,
with that is a community of fans and senators who are respectful. This is a democracy, of course. Everybody's allowed to have their opinion. We're sharing it and we're having fun. And that's the type of people we want to invite. Is you don't have to agree with everything that we're saying. We don't have to agree with everything that you're saying. That's why it's Star Wars democracy. Everybody can have a say. And at the end of the day, this is a safe place for everybody just to come and have fun and talk about Star Wars. So I'm leaving it there.
my final point is just play devil's advocate with the questions that or the problems that you're having with this whole issue. Mainly the biggest one. If this was George, would you feel the same way about it? That's really the biggest issue that I have. It's like, okay, you're trading George, the guy who created it, and that's fair. I'm not going to disagree with you. But if
Hmm.
this was George, would you still feel the same way about it, like he's ruining Star Wars?
Yeah,
That's my whole question.
yeah, for sure. Would it matter if it was George? And we'll probably never know, but it's
Yeah,
something to reflect on. Uh, Travis says Tony's right. From the trailer, people posted that one quote from Kiadi Mundi about the Sith not being seen in a millennia. Having that very Jedi be the one in the shows up means there's purpose. Yep, I believe so. Goes on to say, just like Ventress coming back to life, the articles, videos, and so on were so intent on pointing out the retcon, but not one accurately summarized what happened in said book. Yeah. And then Tony says, we just need to see if he lied in the Phantom Menace or there was a reason the Jedi didn't tell him that there was a Sith. Yeah, there's 4 more episodes, plenty of more story to be told. We have to hold out hope that all of this will work out in the long run. Just hold on tight, people. 4 more episodes. All right. Before we get into the next topic, I just wanted to bring up banner. We're going to be talking about a lot of different Star Wars things tonight, but one of the things you'll see at the bottom of this banner is a subscriber and member count. So the goal has always been to get to 1,000 subscribers. And then I have another little mini goal to get to 5 members. So right now we have 671 subscribers and we have 2 members. So I'm just going to leave that little ticker at the bottom. If you could share with all your friends or across platforms, whatever you need to do, I would really appreciate it. Trying to get to that 1,000 subscriber mark and 5 member mark. Not a set date, just leaving it down there to see our progress. I really appreciate you all being here and being a part of this community. So, okay, what I wanted to do was, and this will probably break the stream, so we're just gonna roll with it. Let's see. I'm gonna pull up my YouTube channel because there's a couple of polls that I wanted to go over. Let's see.
Sorry, I just saw.
What'd you see?
I saw Tony there.
Tony doing things again. Oh. Okay, let's see here. So, part of the Galactic Senate discussion tonight is I want to go through some of the polls that I posted throughout the week, and just kind of talk about them and talk about, kind of the meaning behind them and the trajectory of things. Thought it'd be a little bit of a fun way to incorporate the democracy component of this, of being like, here's what everybody voted on. So, the first one I wanted to dwell on for a little bit is kind of interesting. It's not really about anything show specific, but I thought this was interesting. 114 votes were cast. I mean, not a large sample by any means. In fact, this is the largest sample that we're going to see. On Monday, I had posted, "Are you excited for the Acolyte episode 4? Share your thoughts in the comments." And take a look at this journeyman. 58% of respondents said they're not even watching the episode at all. Now, whether or not that's actually true, whether or not they're just spamming me or lying to me or whatever, I mean, just scrolling through their feed and clicking on something, I don't know. But I just thought that was really interesting that, whether they're lying or not, people feel so strongly about this stuff that they're willing to vote that they're just not going to be watching the episode at all. And then what I also found interesting is there were people who were going to watch, but they weren't excited about it. That still took up 30% of the vote. Only 12% said they're going to be watching it or they're very excited to watch it. What are your thoughts on that? Does that surprise you at all?
No, I mean, like I said, I think people have their own opinions, they're gonna do what they want. If I didn't vote on it, but I would be in the not excited, but I'm kind of watching when it did drop. Like that's how I
Sure.
was honestly feeling. Was yeah, I'll give it a shot, and if I like it, I'll keep watching. And you know, I'm still anxiously waiting on some something more, for the show to get done, so I can give it my full rating. But like I'm enjoying it. So I mean, I'm
It's
not
just
really surprised.
I wasn't either in a sense, but I guess I was just like the fact that we're only four episodes in and people are already writing off the show. At this point, we were only 3 episodes in. It's just crazy to me. It's like I don't understand why people don't give this stuff a chance. I mean, I don't know why people can't just, sit back, watch all 8 episodes and then give their opinion. You know what I mean?
I mean, to be fair, we did. I'm not gonna call us out, but like we didn't watch a lot of Disney Plus shows that came out, and we're like, we're not watching that just because of what happened. I mean, Not Star Wars related, but just like Marvel related too.
Yeah.
Just like
Mhm.
it's not even worth watching, like time wise.
Yeah,
Like
I
we're just
guess.
busy. So like at least at least for at least if you're putting the not excited but I'm watching, at least you gave it at least in my opinion one episode before you're like, you know,
Yeah.
I'm not
Yeah.
watching it.
Yeah, but I was just, to me, I kind of figured that this category was going to be the largest.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Um, it's like I'm still gonna watch, but I'm not necessarily excited. But to the extent that this is true, this really shocked me that people just wouldn't watch at all. Um, it's kind of sad, honestly.
Well,
Travis says,
it just
"I."
shows you where leadership is now. Like you have to have really good
Mhm.
leadership at the top making the shows. Otherwise, it's not. We don't. Star Wars fans or the Star Wars community in general just doesn't have the trust factor with the person.
Yeah. Travis says, I encounter a lot of polls like this regarding other shows and movies, and the amount of votes of people who haven't seen it is surprising. I think it's reflective of people dropping streamers. Are you saying like people dropping streaming services in general, Travis? Um, because I do think that there could be something said for that. I don't have any of the hard numbers in front of me, um, but um, I want to say that the premiere of The Acolyte did relatively well based off of what we know so far. Um, and I do think that more and more people are kind of dropping streaming platforms. But to 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 be on a Star Wars channel, um, and I feel like the you know to be such a relatively small channel and have over 55% of people who saw my poll say they're not watching it at all, which is really surprising to me. I don't know.
Yeah. No.
I don't know. The next poll this week, I posted, "Who's your favorite Jedi from the Acolyte?" A lot of people said Master Saul, which I feel like that was pretty self-explanatory. I mean, I think we all kind of saw that coming for sure. Um, no votes
Zero
for Yord.
people. Yord.
Yeah.
I didn't even vote for it. Sorry, Yord. I'll get my vote in.
Yeah, you like Eward, which I think is great. But yeah, Master Saul definitely took the crown on that one for good reason too. Um, Yesterday after episode 4 had dropped, what rating do you give it? I mean, again, look at that. 47% 1 star. One
Yeah.
star. 6% with 5 stars, and then another majority went to 29% there. But again, you take a look at the distribution here. So you got 29% there, and then another 12% between 3 and 5. So what are you looking at there? 41%. So 41% rated it 3 stars or higher. I mean,
Hmm.
you got 59% of people still rating it either a 2 or a 1. I think that says something, not to go back to, like, the fandom. Obviously, I think what's happening right now with the hate and everything is
Sure.
wrong, but I think, like, again, and this is only 17 votes. I mean, a very, very small distribution, so I don't think we can really, this is
Take
this is just a
that
a
much from
small
it. Yeah.
glimpse, but still, I think there is something to it. If people don't like the show, and I think that is just factually, obviously, like, objectively true, um, and that's okay, but
Hmm.
I find myself in a weird situation where usually I'm kind of in agreement with the crowd a little bit on these things for the most part,
Hmm.
at least at the time. And to me, I don't know if I would have given it 5 stars, but I would have said 4 stars. What do you think? What would you have given
I
it?
would have probably been in 3 or 4, between 3 and 4.
3 and 4? Yeah. So, I mean, it's just wild to me. I feel like you and I are usually like, we kind of would tend to agree with what other people are saying. And, that's just kind of where we fall normally in a distribution like that. Um, but here we are. I guess kind of grinding against everybody else. Okay, this one
Yeah.
is going to trigger you.
Okay. I haven't seen.
I was curious on, and I'm curious what you senators in the chat think about this as well.
Okay.
I was
I need
I
to
was
read this
curious
question.
on what your favorite recent live action Star Wars project from 2020 to 2023 is. Book of Boba Fett and Mandalorian season 3 are not listed here. So if those are your favorite, let me know. But 28 votes were in. I posted this one 14 hours ago, so I'm curious to see as the votes continue to trickle in. But my friend, do you see what is in the lead right now for
Oh my
people's
gosh. I
favorite,
just
most
looked.
recent one?
What the? How? See, now I'm on the crowd. I'm not on the. I'm still not on the crowd. Like, I, that's wild to me. I know we all have opinions. I get it. I just
What I think is even more wild. I mean, it's not surprising, but what is more wild?
it's Kenobi.
I mean, like, I
That's
don't even
that
know.
should have once again. That should have been a home run. That
The
should have been
Acolyte,
a home run.
did you know? I think we've talked about this before. Did you know the Acolyte has twice the budget that Kenobi did?
Yes,
Acolyte has $180 million for the budget, or had $180 million. Kenobi had 90. This had Hayden
that's
Christensen, Ewan McGregor, Ian McDermott,
yeah.
Vader,
Mm-hmm.
and look at
And
that.
then it had Qui-Gon coming back, but
Qui-Gon.
you know,
Sorry, I forgot
whatever.
Liam Neeson. Yeah,
Yeah,
7%. That is just not good, in my opinion.
I'm gonna look at
Just
something real quick just because I'm curious now.
and then
Okay, so just because I'm that curious. So on Rotten Tomatoes, I went on there.
mhm.
Andor has an 87%. It's the popcorn that's the fans rating, right?
Yes. Mhm.
Okay, so Andor has 87%.
Okay.
Kenobi has 61. Do they even have Acolyte on here? They don't. Apparently, they don't have Acolyte.
No, they should, because I think it's at like 15% or something.
I'm gonna look it up. Go.
So Travis says Andor is my favorite of these, but I'm also the only person who thought the finale of Mando season 2 was one of the worst episodes. Oh my gosh, Travis. The worst
Wait, man.
episodes of Mando season 2?
Okay, that's crazy. Um, you said it was at 15%.
Is it lower now?
It's at 14.
Oh my gosh. So
I'm laughing at the fact because it is that people really are review bombing or hating on it or actually not liking it that bad.
yeah, people despise the show for some odd reason because I actually think it's pretty
And
good.
sometimes I just laugh at it because it's the pure drama of it, and sometimes you just have to watch like things watching and
Hmm.
burning down. So that's
Yeah.
kind of my reason as well.
So, I posted this poll. So Mandalorian, I, I also tried to structure this away. It didn't work out perfectly, but this came out in 2020. This came out
Hmm.
in 2022, summer of 2022. This was fall of 2022, and this was fall of 2023. So we've kind of over the years, that's how it flows. Um, and what I was kind of wondering, and we were the reason why I posted this poll in particular is I was trying to get a gauge for what we were talking about off the air the other night, and that is, has Star Wars lost its magic? Um, because I feel like, at the time in the Mandalorian season 2, granted there was COVID,
Hmm.
people were locked in their houses or wherever they were. We didn't have a lot going on, obviously. Um, for you and me, this is kind of like what we looked forward to. We'd get up at 2 a.m. or whatever time, it was coming out in the morning and watching and having so much fun. I mean, I would stay up for hours after that and theorize and
Yeah,
speculate. And are we going to see Luke? Are we going to see Ahsoka come back? Like, what does all
yeah.
this mean? Bo-Katan, all this stuff. It was magical. And I don't know if you senators or anybody in the chat agree with that, but it was such a magical time. Um, and especially because I had, I think we had both kind of just gotten back into Star Wars a little bit more and we're more intrigued. That was the year I became really focused on Ahsoka and wanting to learn more about it. And it just so happened to be the same year that she comes into live action. So I was on YouTube constantly and searching things and like, who is this character? Why is she showing up? Watching
Hmm.
Rebels, watching Clone Wars. It was a magical time. And I think that has something to do with it. But I think in general, fans were just more happy than too. Um, and so
And
it doesn't surprise me that 32% of respondents are voting for Mandalorian season 2 right now.
sure, I so I kind of tell the our chat kind of what we were kind of talking about over the phone a couple days ago. Like, I think you're right. Like, the magic kind of has worn off. The Like you said, it was a magical time. I think for COVID specifically, it was happening during COVID and everything. Everybody was trying to look towards hope, something to look forward to, something to cling on to.
Mhm.
And Star Wars, like it still is for a lot of people, is the thing to cling on to, and
Yeah.
gives them their gives them a source of happiness and everything. And so I think when you saw the ending of season 2 and you finally had that euphoric like release of energy and excitement for the show of seeing Luke, I think that brought everyone's childhood back of like, that is the hope that we were looking for. That
Mhm.
was
Mhm.
everything that it was. Like, it brought all the childhood back.
Yeah.
Now, when you look at it, it's we're kind of coming off we have been coming off that high for a long time, and we are trying to search for it again, but it's hard to have that expectation every time, and we know it can't happen every time, but still we are searching for it every time.
Yeah. Well, and I think to touch on that a little bit, what you're saying, Travis says part of the magic of the original saga was maintained by the fact that you just watched the movies and had the opinion of you and your friends. Now social media focuses on the behind the scenes. Yeah. So
True, but yes,
that's
so
kind of
that
where
was
you fall, right? That's why you've kind of moved away from it a little bit is you got frustrated with the people covering it on the front end, spoiling it or just over covering it to the point where it lost its I guess magic when you see it on the actual screen.
its meaning or
No?
magic because, like you said, we would stay up for a long time and we wanna research the whole thing about it, and, we wanna get on social media and listen to other people that me and you both watch, and other creators that maybe we don't necessarily watch together, but, like, other creators out there, and so I got kinda too fed up with it, like you said, and so that's kind of it, is there's no fun in it anymore. It's all very, very corporately where, like Travis is saying, it was just you, your friends, and your imagination at that point. Now everything
Mhm.
is a lot of questions have been answered, a lot of pictures have been answered. Now it's just, how do you gain more of that? How do you
Yeah.
make it
Is it
how do you
executed?
add
Yeah.
more questions? Yeah.
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
think
Yeah.
so, going back to this poll though, I think an interesting question that you have to ask for these directors, or the connection that you have to draw from these shows, is who's who's running the thing, right? So, like, Mando, you had Dave and John running it, right? Even in season 3, even though season 3 wasn't necessarily great, it was still Dave and John running it. So you
Mhm.
had trust in the people that were doing it. You had Kenobi, which was is that Deborah Chow or
Deborah
whatever
Chow.
her name was?
Mhm.
Yeah,
Who worked on The
Deborah Chow,
Mandalorian.
who worked on The Mandalorian, but it was still John and Dave kind of directing it, kind of guiding her, giving her the um, alleyway, I guess, with the bumpers,
Hmm.
kind of holding the bumpers there for you. And/or you have, um, I'm looking, it's a really famous guy who I can't forget his name. I can't remember his name. Uh,
Andor is Tony Gilroy, I believe.
yes, Tony Gilroy, who's a pretty big get for them.
Hmm.
Like he's a highly touted director and everything. Then you have Ahsoka, which is Dave once again. And so, at least in my opinion, the connection that I draw is like, what do all these three people, all these four people really have in common? John and Dave, Tony Gilroy, or no, yeah, three people. John and Dave and Tony Gilroy. What do they all have in common? They're all trusted by Hollywood people and they're also trusted by fans. So
Hmm.
they're given a lot of leeway with it. John and Dave just on Star Wars fans because they know the content. Tony Gilroy is more of the Hollywood people and they're going to give leeway with that.
Well, and what I also think, again, only 28 votes. I'm curious to see if more trickle in and how the distribution kind of spreads on this. But with 28
Sure.
votes, which is, good enough for us to draw some conclusions, I think, of what we're seeing here, is
Yeah.
I think what's really interesting is there's a lot of variance. There isn't necessarily speaking one project that we all as fans rally behind and say, this was by far the best one out of everything. There's a lot of variance. Um, for me, I would say I'm stuck between Mando season 2 and Ahsoka. I love Ahsoka. I love the character of Ahsoka. I love the story that we got in Ahsoka. But
I did I liked the story of Ahsoka. I didn't love the whole show. Mando
sure.
season 2 was the thing that really drew us back in. Mando season 2 was you had all the cameos. You had Boba Fett coming back. You had Ahsoka coming back. You had Luke coming back. Like that was like it felt
Yeah.
like banger after banger after banger, and
Mhm.
it flowed with the story. Like the story made sense, and it was ramping up every time. We're still trying to find that, and they can't seem to do it, or they're just we as fans are expecting it too much.
Mhm. Yeah, so it's like it's kind of a tie between Mando season 2 and Ahsoka. I honestly don't know which one I'd vote for. Probably Ahsoka just cuz I love Ahsoka so much. Like and I
I mean,
think
that's
that
fair. Yeah.
we're gonna talk about it in a little bit too, but I think there's so much that they can do with the character of Ahsoka moving forward. Um, what's great is, I mean, the next two Star Wars movies potentially, uh, with the caveat of the Daisy Ridley Ray movie, is going to literally be the Mandalorian and Grogu and Ahsoka. Uh, or I'm sorry, Dave Filoni's movie will be about Heir to the Empire, which will probably include Mando and Ahsoka. Um, Travis says, it feels like in gym class when the baseball lands next to you, then every single kid at once starts yelling at you to run. What are you doing? Do your parents even love you? Made up that one.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, so I don't know. I found this really interesting and I wonder if the magic is still there. I have hope that the magic is still there. I'm not really feeling them. To me, the magic of Star Wars, that part of you that it just gets all emotional. When when you hear the theme of Ahsoka and you see her look out, and at the end of the Ahsoka show, and I think I want to say Sabine's like, "What are you looking at?" or "What do you see?" and Ahsoka's like, "Nothing," and that's when you see Anakin there, just looking on his apprentice.
It's the yearning that we all want.
It makes you
It's that
feel
type
like a
of
little
magic.
kid,
Yes, it makes you feel like a little kid.
and I
That's
can't say
why
that that's true for the Acolyte, but I still like it.
no, like it's a fun show. I just don't really. we haven't had enough time with the characters, and yet I'm not really like connected that much. So it's like it's something new. We have all had a connection with at least Ahsoka
Mhm.
in that
Mhm.
instance. Anakin, like that's so main core Star Wars that it's hard to
Mhm.
let go.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, New senator who's joined us, Mini Clicks the First, says we need better Star Wars movies. Great to have you here, Senator. Thanks for being a part of the channel. I agree. We need a Star Wars movie. Forget
We
better.
need
We
a
need
Star
a
Wars
Star Wars
movie.
movie.
It needs to be better, but I think that's one of the reasons they're going back to the movies is like I think they need to stop. I think we talked about this a long time ago before, but like they need to stop doing the shows. Like
Mhm.
I think we need to get back to the magic of movie making and getting back to the theater of having that emotion, that connection back rather than just sitting at home, you know,
Yeah.
having the home theater feel. It's kind of like what are we doing?
Well, and that's kinda I was thinking about that too. I mean, can you imagine if Acolyte was on the big screen? I mean, that would make it, I feel like, a lot better in my opinion, if it was a movie, first of all, but also you see that Sith just floating in. Um, think about that on the big screen. That would have been intense.
Yeah,
I mean, it was
I was
intense
still
already,
sitting at
but
home thinking about
yeah,
having a whole group of people around you being like, "Did did you just see that? Did you just see
yeah,
that?"
it would be so much fun. So, part of it, I think is, I can just imagine that if they do this correctly, we'll talk about Dave Filoni's movie in a second because there's a little bit of news with Dave Filoni's movie.
Okay,
But if they do it right, can you imagine we'll have Ahsoka, The Mandalorian, Hayden, um, Luke. I mean, it's a viable possibility that all of those characters are in one movie in the movie theater. And we see Anakin as I'm making a video right now about how he's the last celestial in the Star Wars universe, the equivalent to a Force god, like the Mortis gods. He's the last one, and his task is to be the guardian of the world between worlds and its power, a guardian of the cosmic force. Like, he has a big role in the Star Wars universe going forward, and I hope, which leads me to another thing that I think is really cool. So I asked Travis in the Discord, which if you're not a part of the Discord, there's a free Discord that you can join. Should be in the description of this live stream, but it's free. You can join it, have a lot of fun. Would love to get some more people in there and we can just chat all day long. But I asked Travis about some book recommendations. I don't know if you recommended this one, Travis, but um, I'm curious on your take on this, actually, Trinity Man. So I was thinking, like, I want to get into the books. I think that that's just fun. Um, and I didn't realize with Spotify Premium, uh, almost every Star Wars book out there is on Spotify as an audiobook for free. I mean, you
okay,
pay for the subscription,
sure, yeah,
um, but it's
you can
free.
get
So I was
all of
like,
them. Yeah,
they're all there, and I was like, I had this debate in my head, and this kind of goes along to igniting the magic again of they have all the legends books, which is obviously not canon, and they have all the canon books, which obviously is canon. And I've always wanted to get into the canon books, and I thought to myself, you've done so much digging and you've seen so many videos on the canon of Star Wars. What would make it a lot more fun, and I feel like what would potentially bring some of that magic back, is go back to the stuff that inspired the stuff that we're getting today, because
and go
that
actually experience it and
ex-
listen to it, and
experience it, listen to it, and it's kind of like Marvel. The people who really love Marvel and speculate about Marvel are the ones who've read the comics and got all the inspiration, and they're like,
yes,
okay, well, this is what happened in the comics. Like, are they doing this? Are they adapting this into the canon that we see in the MCU and things like that? Um, so I started listening to the Fate of the Jedi books. There's 9 books total, and in my understanding is, Travis, correct me if I'm wrong here, because I know you're still in the chat. Um, but the Fate of the Jedi books take place. They're about Luke's Jedi Order after Return of the Jedi, and that is where Abeloth comes in. So where we think the Ahsoka series is leading with Abeloth, who is the mother of the Mortis gods, that's
Interesting.
the book that those are the books that Abeloth comes in. That's what I want to listen to. Something that is not part of canon right now, but could be instrumental in influencing the direction we're going. And I feel like that's
Sure.
going to ignite some of my love for stuff again. Is getting filled with content, but then getting to speculate on, okay, are they going to adapt this? Are they going to do something like that? Blah blah blah. So that's kind of what I'm thinking on that. Travis says, wow, Fate of the Jedi is jumping right to the end of the expanded universe. Yeah. I didn't realize those books came out in the late 2000s. I was expecting those to I didn't know when they came out, but I guess I wasn't expecting those to have been that recent, I guess. So I don't know. What's your take on that, Journey Man? Do you feel like to experience the magic is it beneficial to go and explore the existing canon, or do you think that what I'm saying makes sense when it comes to Legends?
I think it's gonna sound like a cheesy answer, but like do whatever you think is right to ignite your passion for whatever you're doing.
That
So
was very poetic and philosophical. Thank you.
I think about stuff a lot. Um, I appreciate it. But honestly, that's like my answer for a lot of stuff. Like if you have a dream or a passion or like wanting to go get something, you have to start taking steps towards that goal. So if that's getting back into Star Wars and kind of letting your childhood like relive it a little bit, like and finding it somewhere.
Mhm.
If that's through the books, go read the books. If that's for Marvel, like going back and reading the comics, which is what I kind of want to do for just Marvel's sake, like good, go do that. Like
Mhm.
whatever whatever it is, you kind of have to find it yourself. You can
Yeah.
have people help you along the way and you know, there's no problem in that. You just you kind of got to do it yourself.
Mhm.
I don't think you're wrong. I think if to get to your specific question, I think in my opinion, I think the Legends books would be more interesting because we hear a lot of the canon already,
Mhm.
and I think it would be more interesting to go to Legends than anything else because then you can have your kind of full imagination of like this book not necessarily doesn't even matter. Like you can have your kind of imagination with it. Like
Mhm.
you can think
And
about it in
hope
any way.
exactly, and hope and wonder if they're going to take these things and put them into the stories. That's what I'm hoping to get out of it is I'm tired of reading canon to do have like a history lesson almost. I want
It's
to
kind of
ignite
hard
my
to
imagination.
because we were I know it was a long time ago. We read the Dooku book, right? Dooku
Mhm.
Jedi Lost or whatever,
Mhm.
and it was great. I kind of remember the story of it. I felt like it was pointless by the end of it. Like, okay, why did we even take this journey? But like, it sort of felt like that. Like it was kind of like a history lesson of everything, and I'm
Mhm.
like, that's great. That's wonderful. But I have like the shows to kind of sum me up and get me ready
Mhm.
for what I really need to know. But if you,
Yeah.
I think Legends, it's it is literally the comic book for Star Wars. Essentially, is
Mhm.
what I'm viewing it as. Like, it does not matter. Like, go read
It's
it.
it's the inspiration, yeah.
It's the inspiration for a
Really
lot of
it's
stuff.
really so I saw Travis post this. He says, "I do recommend not starting with Fate of the Jedi as you're going to be painfully confused." Yeah, I kind of got that, Travis, as I'm reading at the beginning. I'm like, "Who are these people?" But I will say
Yeah.
this. I treat it kind of as the same way that George treats or did episode 4 first. Sometimes it's better just to throw yourself right in the middle of the story, and then it makes reading the things that came before that just as good, if not better, because you already kind of get a context.
Yes.
So,
So if you look at the people who made Star Wars or like even fans of it, they said the same exact thing you're saying now. Like when they were watching 4, 5, and 6, they were totally confused about the whole thing. But as soon as they kind of found their footing within the story, they're like, okay, I'm fine with this. Like
Yeah.
let let's just go.
Hmm.
So like I said, you as a in Star Wars terms, as a wise master once told me, like follow the path that the Force guides you. I don't know,
Hmm.
something along those lines.
Yeah. Travis had said before, what's fascinating with the Fate of the Jedi series that they were being published alongside the Clone Wars show as it was going on, so it provides an alternate payoff to the Mortis storyline. Yeah, and that's kind of why I'm starting with this too. Travis is that's what I'm most interested in right now is the Mortis gods and Abeloth and where Ahsoka could be going. Um,
Speaking of that,
yeah,
what's the news on that? What's the news on Ahsoka, Dave's movie?
yeah. I'm gonna see if I can pull up the article. But let me read Travis. This is kind of what we are just talking about. Travis says, I remember reading Aftermath back in 2015, which the Aftermath novels are about the aftermath of the Empire. Meeting this guy named Cobb Vanth, who found Boba's armor. Then 5 years later, seeing him walk into the bar, I lost it. That was magic. That's what I'm talking about. Is even though the Aftermath trilogy is canon, getting to read something, getting to experience something, and then seeing it come to life in a way that maybe you didn't conjure up in your head, but seeing what it actually was like when it came on screen, that's the magic. It's just like Ahsoka, right? Like we had this
That's kind of how I
vision.
felt reading the Percy Jackson books. Like as that book was coming along, and
Hmm.
then we watched the movie. Like so many things fell into order.
Yeah, it's like what do you? That's where I think that's where the magic comes from, Travis. That's what you said. What I was you articulated what I was trying to say is we conjure up these things in our mind. For me, why Ahsoka was so impactful is because I had a picture, right, of what it was going to be like. And then I saw it and I'm like, well, it didn't necessarily line up with what I thought, but it was magical. Same with Luke Skywalker. What's it going to be like? If we really do see Luke, like, is he going to have his green saber? Like, is he going to come in guns blazing? Like, what's he going to do? How's he going to act? What's he going to look like? And then you see it and it's magic.
Yeah.
And we don't have that. You don't get that same experience with the Acolyte. You don't get that same experience.
Same thing for Ahsoka. Everyone for
Yeah.
years was wondering how Ahsoka was gonna look on screen, how the voice, how the acting. Like we wanted her in live action, and yet when we saw her in Mando, everyone freaked out because that was a
Well,
magical
what's
moment.
Hayden going to look like? We had been hearing what we were hearing
What's
for
Hayden
years.
gonna
Is Hayden going to
look
be a
like
Force ghost? Is he going to
being
be
back?
a
Yeah.
hologram?
So
Yeah, it's it, it it's magical. It's magical. Tony says at 70, I'm enjoying everything Star Wars. Heck with small inaccuracies. George introduced his own while making the original trilogy. When trying to fill in backstories, there will be issues with ages events to make it all fit in. Exactly, Tony. I'm with you. I'm not quite 70, but I'm getting to a point where I just want to enjoy it for what it is. I do think that you have to be careful and you have to tread lightly on some things. I don't think people should just
it still is a
go
property that
wild with
people
Star
care about.
Wars.
Yes.
Hmm. Um, Tony says I look for escapism and something to root for. And that's great, Tony. I think at the end of the conversation that Journeyman and I had the other night, and what I'm getting to right now is what the thing I'm missing in Star Wars for me personally is the magic. And that doesn't mean that it can't feel magical for you right now, but that's what I'm missing. I'm missing some of that magic. So I'm trying to create it for myself by going back and reading some of those stories. So let me see if I can share this article. So I posted a short of this today. But there's a Bespin article that says Dave Filoni provides an update on his Star Wars movie, has an opening he likes, focused on Ahsoka Season 2. So it says 14 months ago, Lucasfilm announced that a new Star Wars movie from Dave Filoni, the creator of Ahsoka and Star Wars Rebels, was in development and would act as a crossover event film for the various live-action Star Wars series he's been producer on: The Mandalorian, The Boba Fett, Ahsoka, and Skeleton Crew. Since that announcement, word on the development of that flick has been quite quiet, but now Dave Filoni has shared an update on where he's at in the process. So there's that. Can we just take a moment, by the way? I gotta see his face when we say this. Can we just soak in the fact that we're literally getting in a Star Wars Avengers movie written and directed by Dave Filoni?
Yeah. Once again, it's the trust factor that has me really excited for it. It's not something. It just has me excited for someone that I trust with Star Wars.
Yeah,
That
absolutely.
that's
I
the
mean,
like I think nowadays that's the first step for a lot of Star Wars fans. It's like, can I trust this creator? Can I? And with Deborah Chow, we tried to trust her, but once we once you got the keys, it's like, nope, we're taking that car away now. Like,
yeah, it's just exciting. It's just exciting. Um, okay, it says speaking to the Happy Sad Confused podcast alongside Ahsoka stars Rosario Dawson and Hayden Christensen as part of a For Your Consideration campaign for the Ahsoka series. Dave shared an update on his highly anticipated crossover film and the second season of Ahsoka. Filoni revealed to the podcast that he works in long threads and likes to know where the story's going to go and what the outcome of that story should be, and added that this is how he worked on past stories he's told, such as the Clone Wars and Rebels. He
interesting,
shared
good,
that it's at a normal development point for him, and that writing on Ahsoka season 2, and this is the important part, has helped him with the development of his movie, as he now has a clear idea of where things are going to go in that film. So we know that the film is going to be directly tied to what's happening in Ahsoka season 2. And Ahsoka season 2 is happening. Like, it's not even a question at this point. Like, it's happening. Um and this is key too. Adds that his full focus is clearly on the second season of Ahsoka. So that's his main
interesting,
priority right now, is not the movie. Ahsoka season
good,
2 is his number one priority.
good.
Um this is I wish I could pull up my short, because this is literally the exact part of the interview that I put in the short. But um yeah, he basically, says that he was working in very long threads, which is him saying that, he needs to see a story from start to finish before he can really kind of dig into it. Um he talked about, like, when he did the Clone Wars, like, he knew how the Clone Wars was going to end before he even really got started, which I think is pretty cool. Like, he had a scene, an idea in his mind of how it was supposed to end. Um,
Which is why everyone
let's
was chanting
see.
for season 7. Is I think there was threads of him like knowing where it was ending, but we never got it.
Yeah, yeah. I think the key thing is here. He says, "I think for me, it's going well. It's at a normal development point in the way that I make these stories happen, and so we'll see. It's been fun to dive into, and working with Jon Favreau on his movie, The Mandalorian and Grogu. That's exciting, and all the other things that we're at Lucasfilm developing. It's different for me now than what it was before, because now I'm involved in everything. Like, it's his job at this point as
That's
chief creative
crazy.
officer to be
So
involved in
John is
everything."
doing Mando and Grogu, and
Yes.
Dave's doing the okay. Interesting. Okay,
So
that's
basically, John is doing Star Wars Iron Man,
okay.
and Dave is doing Ahsoka season 2, and then he's doing the movie. That's
That kind of makes sense though.
It's amazing, in my opinion. That's so
Yeah.
cool.
No.
And Tony brought up a really good point of, like, we probably haven't heard a lot of what's going on with his movie being Dave's movie, because if they're needing to do the Mandalorian Grogu movie and they're needing Ahsoka season 2 to be done, if Dave needs those to be solidified for him to be able to do his movie, like he has to wait on both of those. So
Yeah.
I just think that it's really cool. I mean, we don't know, like he says right here, we don't know when the second season of Ahsoka's um going to be filming. He says it's unlikely that it'll be this year. Um, probably won't be getting Ahsoka until 2026 at the earliest. So
2026 at the earliest. Gosh.
that's kind of a bummer, but
Yeah.
it is what it is.
But I never knew how Dave did his thing. I think we got a little bit behind the scenes of how he actually does it, though, which is
Mm-hmm.
nice because I don't think we've ever heard his really process on things. Like he said, I've had like few for the shorts that he did for Tales of the Jedi. Like he said, I've had these stories that I've wanted to write, but I've never done it. But now he's kind of telling us his kind of full process. Like, no, I like to have everything like planned out and want
Mm-hmm.
to know where the story's going. And so it would make sense that you would want to iron everything out before you even go into production on anything. Because
Yeah.
I think that's a lot of what Marvel has a problem with, and what Star Wars has done is like they don't have a set thing of what they're working off of, not meaning that you can't necessarily change it, but at least you need to have a hard plan kind of going into it of like we're really going to hit these points along the way.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean you can't change little things, but I think that's a nice plan going
Mm-hmm.
forward.
Well, and it's music to my ears because that's what we were
Yeah,
missing, I feel like, from the sequels and things like that. So
yeah.
um
Once again, it's giving. I think what Dave does really well is he gives enough information to where it's like music to fans' ears of like, hey, it's trusting, like kind of throwing us a bone essentially, of like just trust me, still working on it. Here's
mhm,
everything you kind of need to know behind the scenes of where we're at.
mhm.
Not giving you too much, but it's like, yeah, we're fine.
Yeah. Ah, love Dave. Go watch. I know you haven't been on YouTube and stuff. Probably haven't seen some of the stuff I've been posting. I'll send you an interview or a short that I created where he's talking about. I'll get to your comment here in a second, Travis. But Dave was talking about um, how he was nervous. Let me back up. He's talking about how he was taking Star Wars too seriously when he started the Clone
Mm,
Wars. He says I was taking it way too seriously. He was afraid to take risks and do certain things. And George pulled him aside and he was like, "You're taking this way too seriously. You need to have fun." Like, and he said it. George was like, "You need to have fun." And so one of the things that came about from that was Snips and Sky Guy. Like Dave was like, "This is not going to work. Like this is not a good idea. Like this is not good." And George was like, "No, you need to have fun with this." And he goes on to say, like, and it gives me chills just saying it. So go watch the interview with Dave as he's saying it, and you'll get even more chills. But he's like, you fast forward to now, and you have Hayden Christensen as Anakin saying, "Hey, Snips in the world between worlds," and it's like, had they not have done that all those years ago, it wouldn't have. That's
it
like
wouldn't have
he.
meant anything.
Well, he says like that's the best thing, or I can't remember how he phrased it, but like that's the best thing he could have said because for a generation of fans, that's what they grew up with and that's what they know. And he's like, George just had this way of knowing like those kinds of little things like that seem silly are meaningful. And I'm like, you're darn right it was. So yeah, go watch it though. It'll make you tear up listening to him because I have music in the background and it's just like, gosh, he gets it. So anyway, Travis says, not to make it about this, but Mace Windu just had a 4-part comic last month, and the novel Mace Windu, The Glass Abyss, is coming out in August. They're bringing attention to him for a reason. I assume this is obviously a canon novel, so that's pretty cool. He says, if you want to draw the casual audience to this Mando movie, it should be accessible to fans of the 9 films. One of those things is bringing back Mace, just saying. So, Travis, I know you have a lot of fun theories and can come up with some really cool theories. I'm curious how you're conjuring up this one in your head of how they're going to be, uh, how do they make this happen? Tony says Jackson does want to return to Star Wars. They de-aged him for Captain Marvel. They could do the same for young Mace series. I think Travis is saying just bring him in as an older Mace Windu into the Mandalorian and Grogu movie. I don't know how. I don't know how you bring him in, but what's your thought on that? Should they just go ahead and just bring him in?
Anything outside of a Force Ghost like Anakin, I'm kind of gonna be really disappointed. Like if they're gonna bring him in, like I'm sorry, but you can't use one of the most pivotal people to turn Darth Vader and not like have him like just survive. Like to me,
Mhm.
that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Like he's at least got to be a Force Ghost
Yeah. Yeah, I
if you're
don't know.
going to do it. I don't like it. I don't like it even for him. Like Anakin, I get it. Like he Mortis, everything like the theories. Like I totally get that, and that is who Star Wars is really based around.
Mhm. Mhm.
But Mace, I'm like, yeah.
Don't do it. Yeah, I don't know. We'll see. It could be cool. I think the Mandalorian Grogu will be so fun. I can't wait to just walk into a movie theater and be like, "There's about to be Star Wars on this movie screen." Like, that's just gonna be so refreshing. Um. So anyway, I was able to update the subscriber count. We're at 672 now out of 1,000, so we're trickling up.
Yeah,
Um. Just a reminder, I want to get back into doing the audio Discord. Journeyman, if you want to join that, you have to be a senator for that. So it's $2.99 a month. You get access to the loyalty badges next to your name, as well as the audio channel. I'm going to start members only polls that we can talk about during these live streams, where only members are able to vote. Um, Priority reply to comments, all that good stuff. It really helped out and supports me and the channel. So I would really appreciate you considering that. We're trying to get to 5, so that is the goal. Um, in other news, I'm not going to bring up an article or anything because it'll take me too long to find it. But
sure.
the Daisy Ridley Ray movie that's supposed to be about the new Jedi Order
Are they
being
gonna cancel it?
it doesn't seem like it. In fact, it's the opposite. Guess who they've brought in to I don't want to say brought in to consult, but guess who Charmin Obaid Chinoy has met with regarding the movie?
George,
Supposedly, George Lucas.
just give it to George.
I think they're going to
Let
give it to
George.
George, but I mean that kind of speaks volumes. I think I mean that if that doesn't make fans happy and show that there's at least some care being put into it. Now, what does it mean that he met with them? Was it like a little 2-minute little thingy? Was it like
Yeah,
an hour long, 2 hour long conversation about where he envisioned the story going? I don't know. But the fact that they're saying that they're bringing in George Lucas, Dave Filoni, all these people to consult on it. Again, I don't know if consulting is the right word, but talk about it. I think that that's pretty cool. I mean, you got to
at
admit
least it
that's pretty
shows
cool.
at least to fans. At least it shows that you're trying to make some effort into it.
Yeah,
Of
trying
like
to.
get the head people
Hmm.
who know it where their brain is at. At least
Hmm. Yeah,
not saying you
yeah.
have to follow it, but just saying like getting their kind of approval on it.
Hmm. Yeah. No, I think that it speaks volumes. I think that it's a really good thing. I'm excited for it. Like if it's done right, I don't know. I think what I
If the see, yes, it's done right. I think she can still have a turnaround at Ray. You just need to you have to really maneuver the character into getting her to where we Star Wars fans like her.
yeah.
That's like my biggest that's like the biggest thing about her. It's like no one really outside of sequels fans, like it's just kind of like, yeah, it's Ray. Yay. Like
Mhm.
there's to me there's nothing really that exciting. It's like, yay. Go Ray. Like
Yay,
if
it's
I'm
Ray.
being honest, it's Ray.
Yeah.
Hope you can bring the ray of sunshine.
Well, I don't know. I have hope for it. Again, that's kind of why I'm wanting to get into the expanded universe legends, because all of that
Exactly.
is all
Yeah.
about the new Jedi Order, what Luke was able to create. It went all a little bit differently than the sequels did. So I'm like, okay, this is what
If you
it
can do
could
it
be.
right, I agree.
What aspects of this are you going to take and adapt into the new canon? That's my intention behind going back and read. I encourage you to go. That the opening to Fate of the Jedi. The first book is called, what's it called? Outcast. Star Wars Fate of the Jedi Outcast. Um, it's a really cool opening. I'm just like, this is cool. Travis was right. I'm a little bit confused on some of the characters are and if they've been around for a while, but it starts off really, really cool. I don't want to spoil it, but I'm like, what is going on? Should I just go? Do you want me to spoil it? I mean, it's been out for years now, so I don't really care about.
I probably won't get into the books. I'm not that necessarily big of a reader, but sure, yeah.
Okay. Well, you could do the audiobook. The audiobook is cool because, I mean, heck, when they ignite their lightsabers, you can literally hear the lightsaber getting ignited. So it makes it feel kind of like you're watching a movie. But the beginning of the book, the Luke's Jedi Order, let me just tell you, is very in the legends is vastly different. You can even tell in just the first chapter than what the Jedi Order that we know is. These Jedi are allowed to have relationships. They're allowed to form attachments. It's very,
Interesting.
very different than the Jedi that we're used to from the prequels. Literally, the very first scene opening up is a Jedi called Jana. Someone, Travis, Tony, somebody correct me in the chat, but I think it's Jaina or Jana Solo, who's the nephew, or sorry, the niece of Luke, I guess the daughter of Leia. I'm not sure. Jana Solo. She's a Jedi, and she's literally going on this diplomatic mission with a New Republic senator to meet with the Imperial Remnant about bringing the Empire into the Republic and kind of like unifying everything. But she goes on
Interesting.
this diplomatic mission. She like has this meeting. The head of state, who's like who's in charge of the empire, is there, and like he like is able to get out of everybody in the room, and then this Jedi girl goes and like gets in his lap and like starts kissing him. Like, what is going on here? Like, this Jedi is in a relationship with the imperial head of state. I'm like,
Interesting.
that's really fascinating. And then you cut to a character named Valen Horn, yeah. And he's a Jedi, and he's like in this room. His dad's a Jedi. It's like there's like attachments and stuff there. His dad's a Jedi, his sister's a Jedi. Very, very different. And he's like having dinner or breakfast or eating something with his mom, and all of a sudden he looks at his mom and he's like, that's not my mom. And he like has this moment like where he goes crazy. Like as the book is progressing, the narration is like, it looks like my mom, like the same hair, like it looks like my mom, but he's like, that's not my mom. He like freaks out on her and like ignites his lightsaber and puts it up to her chin, like freaks out. And then his dad comes and takes out his lightsaber and he's like, that's not my dad. So I haven't got much further than that, but he's having some like weird vision, which my hunch
Interesting.
is, don't spoil it for me in the chat, but I think it's Abeloth because again, these 9 books supposedly bring in Abeloth, and one of her main powers is like disorienting Jedi and making them see
It would
things
make
that aren't
sense
real.
because, as we know,
Shin, Shin and Balin.
Shin and Balin. Yeah.
So it's cool.
Interesting.
It's
That's an
fun.
interesting start.
Yeah. So I will continue to fill you in as new things come up. So all right. Well, we've been going for almost an hour and 20 minutes. We've talked about everything that I wanted to talk about. Um, yeah, it was a lot of fun. We will for sure. Will for sure stream next week. On Tuesday, after episode 5 releases, we'll try to hop on around 9 o'clock like we usually do to give our immediate thoughts. And then we'll be back next Thursday for another Galactic Senate discussion covering any of the news that's popped up during that week and maybe covering some polls that we've done throughout the week as well. So, had a lot of fun. It was good talking with you, Journeyman. I think we're going to go ahead and adjourn the stream. May the force be with you always.